All right, friends, this is Spa Guy, and what we're going to talk about today is a CS800-A1. This is a like 115 volt plug and play type pack that you find. This particular tub is a Hydro Princess. This is going to be in more basic hot tubs. It's basically a heater with a thermostat, a high limit, a GFI pressure switch with a air switch that controls the pump high and low speed. It's only going to be a 2-speed pump. But in this particular case, I'm diagnosing this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my meter, and keep in mind that if you're afraid of electricity, don't do this. But if you're comfortable with electricity, put it on AC voltage. I'm going to look at my black and white wire coming in, and I'm going to check across it on this GFI. So when I check across this black and white wire, all right, I'm getting 117 volts. Which this is a industrial voltage, so this is not going to be the same as home voltage. You'll get about 124, 125 at home. If I go to the outside, the output portion of the GFI, and I check across it, I'm getting the same voltage, 116 or so. And the way you can tell is it will say on the GFI, it'll say line, and then it'll say, so line is the input side, and then the output side is going to be the, trying to see where it says it on here. Load, it says load right there. So it's line on this part, on this particular one on the back is line, the load is on the front. You can see the GFI set. So I have voltage going into this. I turn my thermostat up and down, flip this switch over, it doesn't make any difference. So I suspect that the high limit is tripped, and I'm going to show you what the high limit looks like. What the high limit, what that means is that potentially there's a lot of different reasons for it to do it, but the high limit trips off if the tub gets to a certain temperature. So a lot of the manual high limits like this, which is a bulb type, get to like 121 degrees before they trip off. So that could be caused by pump not running, pressure switch stuck closed. There's a lot of different reasons that it would do that. So I'm gonna take the camera and zoom in, and I suspect the high limit's tripped. Then we'll diagnose why it tripped. So this little red button is the high limit reset. When it trips, it comes out. So watch what happens when I push it in. You can hear the pump is stuck. You hear that? So I'm gonna trip the breaker. So now we're going to pull the back off. So I suspect the pump is stuck for some reason, and that's why the high limit got stuck. So, but what could have happened is somebody could have adjusted the pressure switch and made it where it's closed all the time. It doesn't open and close. Therefore, the heater is on whether the pump is moving or not, which is not correct. So stay tuned. I'm going to see what's happening with the pump. So what I've done now is I took the back of the pump off with a 1/4 inch. You can see there's just a 1/4 inch screw right there. Took it off so I have access. There's a flat screwdriver bit back here. So I'm going to take it and see if I can turn it. And I can, in fact, turn it, but it's very tight. So I'm going to power this thing back up, and we're going to see if we can spin start it. Let's just see. There we go. So we've got a bearing going bad in it, and you can actually hear the bearing. So now let me turn the heater on. We're going to put this on and see if we can see how many amps it's drawing. So you can see that pump is drawing 3 amps. We'll turn the heater on. So now the heater's on, it's drawing about 10 amps, that's correct. So now I'm going to go to high speed and see what happens. So when you go to high speed, it should turn the heater off, and it'll make the pump go to high speed, and it did. So we got a leak right here. Let me fix that. That leak is probably what damaged the bearing. Oil filter pliers right there. So you can see that the pump is drawing 12 amps on high speed. I can turn the heater off and it doesn't make any difference because it's turning when it turns the pump on, it turns the heater off. So now we're going to go back to low speed. So now that's low speed with the heater on. And that's the way it should work. Pump comes on, heater comes on. Heater off, heater on. And this is not 100% accurate because it's not holding real tight. And now I got a leak here. So see, this thing tripped the high limit. I suspect that the capacitor may be bad on the back of this pump, but also it could be that it's so tight, but you can hear that it goes off and on its own pretty good. Now what this switch on the top of it does is two things. If you do that, the pump runs without the thermostat. Basically it runs 24/7. If you turn it like this, if the heater goes off, the pump goes off. So it will only pump during the heat cycle. What that's for is during the winter, you would want it to run all the time, 24/7, 365. During the summer, just running with heat would be enough, or I'm telling you wrong, it's actually reversed. It won't run enough during the summer to filter. So you do that and it runs all the time, which it will rarely heat, but it filters more, and during the winter, it'll run just off the thermostat. So I was actually telling you backwards. So there you go, friends. So I'm gonna investigate this some more, make sure what I got here and let you know. Stay tuned. All right, so you saw the high limit trip right here. And see, it won't reset. Well, there it goes, it cooled off. It takes a minute for it to cool off and reset. So the first thing I'm gonna check is, I believe the high limit is bad. It's tripping prematurely. If you look at the temperature, this is it's an air button tub, so it does not have a top side. So I've got a thermometer in it, and you can see that the thermometer is reading about 104, just a hair over 104, which is good. That means the thermostat is working correctly. It's stopping at 104, which is what we want it to do. But the high limit should not be stopping at 104. But what may be happening is, it could be that the water in the tube is moving so slow that the temperature in here is actually higher. Normally those manual high limits like that trip off at about 120, 121, 119, somewhere in that neighborhood. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the tub off, and we're going to look at the filter and see if the filter stopped up. Because if the water's moving so slow across this, the heater can actually overheat the water in the tube and trip the high limit. And yes, it can make that much of a difference. It could make a 15-degree difference. So stay tuned, and I'm going to pull the filter out and we'll look. Hang on. So here's the filter, and you can see that it actually is relatively clean. So I think the filter is actually okay. This thing looks fairly new. So I don't think it's it. I think it does have, in fact, a bad high limit. The other thing that would cause it is if you had something stuck in the impeller of the pump where it was slowing the water movement down enough to create an issue. I also see another issue that this tub has. And that is the pressure switch. Let's zoom in. So if you look at this pressure switch, that's a 3902 or 3903 style, which is a 1 amp pressure switch. You see this purple wire right here on the heater? Where does it go? It goes to that pressure switch. So the heater actually runs through the pressure switch, and it draws about 10 amps. That's a 1 amp pressure switch. I'm surprised it's still going, but you can see that the connections are burned on it and they're loose. The reason is it's too much amperage on it, and I'm surprised that it didn't burn in two. So I'm going to change that pressure switch to a 25 amp style pressure switch, and that should solve it. We're going to put a high limit and a pressure switch on it, and this tub should work fine. Stay tuned, friends. All right, so we're going to change out a couple of items. The first thing we're going to change out is I'm going to talk to you about high limits. This is a high limit. It has a red button, and you remember the red button on the side. There's two different sizes. Basically, the way you determine this is you buy it specifically from us for hot tubs. The other thing is there's two different bulb sizes. There's 1/4 inch and there's 3/8. So if you have a pinch plate system like I'm going to show you here, it really doesn't matter. But there's some tubs that have a thermo well that this fits down into, so that does matter. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start pulling this thing loose. The other thing is the pressure switch. This is a 25 amp pressure switch. The one that's in here is a 1 amp. So somebody put the wrong pressure switch in here. So what I'm going to do is take this loose so you can see up inside here. I actually had to pull the water out of the tub. And I've got to take the pressure switch out anyway to change this high limit. So I'm going to let you see what the pressure switch looks like. So the pressure switch just simply screws out lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. And this pressure switch has run so long it's actually melted and started coming apart. It's a miracle that it works any. And I'll show you what I'm talking about when I get it out. You see how these used to be tight and they're barely making contact. It basically melted it, but it's tough. It stood up to the test. And so we're going to put the right high limit or the right pressure switch in, but we're going to change the high limit out too. And what was happening, as you remember, is this high limit was tripping prematurely. It was tripping at about 104 degrees, which is an indicator usually that it's leaking. And I'll show you what I mean when I say it's leaking. So I'm going to undo the pinch plate here. And that is, the pinch plate is how it holds the high limit on the heater. So this is what I'm talking about, a little pinch plate like that right there. So the high limit slips up inside the plate and then you tighten it. If you have a pinch plate, you can see this one is the big one. This is the 3/8. If you have a pinch plate, you can use either size. If you don't have a pinch plate and it's a thermo well, you've got to use a specific size. So I'm going to take the screws out of the high limit right here. See, these screws are on the back of this pack, so in this particular case you got to take the system apart to, of course, make sure you have no power. I've powered down. And this thing's packed in here pretty good, so I'm going to have to take the dual pole, dual throw switch out as well to make room to pull that device out. Just don't unhook wires. Just don't mix stuff up. Make sure you keep it all pretty straight. Alright, so I'm going to take the high limit and I'm going to pull it out. And you can tell that this high limit's actually bad. I'll show you how you know that it's leaking. And when it leaks, what happens is the way the thing works is the tube is full of oil or a liquid that moves, that expands and contracts with temperature. And so based off of the length of the tube and all that kind of stuff, that's how it knows which part to put in. So it's just got 2 screws on the front, so I'm going to just do one side at a time. Hang on just a second, I'm on camera. Alright, so I hooked it back up just like the other one was. Now I'm going to pull the bulb out. I'll show you where it's leaking at, so you can kind of inspect if you suspect that yours is not working right. If you look right here, you see this green. That's signs that it's leaking right there. And it doesn't take much. I mean, it's not even wet, but when it's green like that, it's leaking. And it changes the calibration of it and makes it trip early. And it says on the side of it that the trip time is 122 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was tripping at 104. So there you go, friends. Stay tuned, I'm going to put this back in and we'll continue, and I'll show you a finished product. Alright, so now I'm feeding the bulb back through. So you want to feed it back through, and you want to go real easy and make sure that you don't unhook anything accidentally. If you do, just pay good attention. You should have, the wires should be tight enough that they don't come off of any of the equipment, but that's not a given. That's just what you hope, if you will. Alright, so we're going to slip the high limit back through, flip it over on the back, put the screws back in to the next one. And these are kind of universal, if you will, so it should line up pretty easy. And when I say universal, the sizes, the screw holes are basically the screw holes in all of them. They should interchange pretty easily. Alright, so I'm going to stick the bulb back in the pinch plate. You can see it's got this, some of them have this little thing to keep it from, and the thermostat bulb is also in here. So both of them will be in this little pinch plate or in thermo wells. If you don't have a pinch plate, you'll usually have two thermo wells, or sometimes one will be on a pinch plate and the one will be in the thermo well. Alright, so we'll situate that after we get this back together. So I'm going to stick this back on. Put that back into place like that right there. Make sure there's no wires pinched anywhere. I don't think there are. Alright, so I've got that tight. Now I'm going to put this pressure switch in, and you can see I put pipe tape on it. And I'm going to put this in and screw it into place. And of course you've got to make room for it. The other one's a little easier to install than this one, but it's not the right amperage. So that's why it burned up. That's a testament to those pressure switches, that you run that thing on high amperage for a long time and it melted, but it kept on working. Alright, so now I'm going to put my switch back in. This is my dual pole, dual throw, air control switch. This is what turns the pump speeds on, high, low, that kind of thing. It's how it changes the pump speeds. Alright, so I've got that. Now I'm going to put these pieces here back on the pressure switch. There's one. Here's another. This one is hung up, so I'm going to actually have to slide it around to make room. Alright, I'm going to put this side back on. What that is a thing that tells the lamp to come on, the heating lamp, so I'm going to put an end on that. But that is all back together, friends. So I'm going to fill the tub back up and power it up and run it and show you that it operates correctly. Stay tuned. Alright, I've got it all together. I'm going to plug it in. Let's see what happens. So you see the heater's on. I'm going to put the amp meter on it. .3. So I'm going to turn, you can see the pump goes on and off with this. When you flip the switch, it stays on. So I'm going to turn it up and we're going to watch it and see if it trips. If the key to it is if the thermostat turns off and the high limit does not trip, then it's fixed. So I'm going to put my thermometer back in the water and let it float. And we will watch it. It'll take a little while. Stay tuned, friends. Alright, friends, so it is working correctly now. You can see it goes off with the thermostat, comes on with the thermostat. And the temperature is right at 103. So you can see that thermostat's right at the edge right there. So this is a solved issue. New pressure switch, new high limit, back together, pump was stuck, got it unstuck, finished product. So if you need any of these parts, click on the banner above. I am the spa guy and I don't know much, but I do know hot tubs. Bye today.